Another comeback win for the NC State Wolfpack. I'll tell you this, that team is developing an identity.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, and Fridays always feel better the morning after an ACC Thursday night game. I love football season. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I know he's got a lot to say today. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So Thursday night ACC action, a comeback win for NC State, 34-24 on the road at Wake Forest. And, you know, Kenton, my advice now to both NC State fans and NC State haters, you know, people who are like, oh, when's Doeren going to get fired? Save your hot takes for the final whistle, because I'm sure you got so many of these independently, Kenton, but there were, you know, some colleagues of ours at the Locked On Network who were putting us together in group chats last night. And after Wake Forest takes the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, and it was a 14-0 lead they ended up building in that game, I'm starting to get these texts with you and me in these groups like, oh, when is Doeren going to get fired? How bad is NC State? And then, you know, your young quarterback, CJ Bailey, continues to cook. And NC State's defense gave up 267 yards and 24 points in the first half. In the second half, they stopped them on third down 9 times. They shut them out to win the game 34-24. So, Kenton Gibbs, I'll ask you this. Are you more concerned about how NC State has played in the first half of games, or do you think the identity in the second half is more who they are?
I would say the answer to that is a obvious yes. The reality is this, right? Everybody knew NC State, and by the way, yes, I know that the answer yes is a cop-out to that question, but it's the truth. It's the truth. This offense is who we thought they were, lighting people up, doing great things pretty much for the entirety of games for the most part. It's just that, you know, it looks bad because you're down 14-0 out the gates, right? Well, let's get into how 14-0 happened. The first kickoff of the game is returned for a touchdown by Mr. Barnes. I don't know why NC State keeps kicking these prolific returners. Maybe we've learned our lesson. Maybe we've learned. Maybe we haven't. Who knows? But, you know, the first play of the game, literally the opening kickoff return for a touchdown. So now you're down 7-0, 6 seconds, 7 seconds into the game, right? Okay, great. Then we go from there and you say, well, the offense has one drive where they get a couple first and then they have to punt. That's not a bad drive for most offenses. Obviously, you want to score, but a couple first downs then a punt, it happens sometimes. And then Wake Forest exploits our defense's inability to get off the field on third downs and scores a touchdown. Now you're down 14-0 like that. That's within 7 minutes of the game starting. About 15 minutes of real time, you're down 14-0. So it's a situation where this team getting down in that manner is not super surprising. But the thing that I will say is surprising, over 6 quarters of second half football this year, Donald, this defense that has been much maligned, this defense that has struggled to get off the field on third downs, this defense that struggled to get stops, over 6 quarters of second half football, that's 3 games, y'all, they have allowed 17 points in total across those second halves. Now, the only problem is those first halves. You allowed 24 points against Wake Forest in the first half of this game, and you allow, I believe it was either 24 or 17 against UVA as well last week. That's obviously not what you want to see. That's not what you want to see. But if you tell me on the back end of that, you're going to be playing exponentially better on defense, that's surprising to me because I expected this defense to be god awful. So I think that both of them are who this team is. I think the excellent first half starts where our offense is cooking and they look like they can't be stopped. That's a part of NC State, as well as the fact that their defense at times will not be able to get a third down stop. And what are you going to do about it? That's part of the NC State experience.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the defense has really stepped up in these second halves, and the offense is fun to watch, Kenton, with this collection of talent. CJ Bailey, who got his baptism by fire starting all those games last year as a true freshman, it's made him so much better now as a true sophomore this year. He goes 23 for 32 against Wake, 201 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on the game. Hollywood Smothers leads America in rushing now. He had 164 rushing yards in that game. Justin Jolie was like, he didn't put up many stats, but he picked up some big plays in the game. One of the best tight ends in the country. His 4 catches for 22 yards, I think, was a deceiving stat in that game. And listen, I know we were joking about this before the show. I'm not really fully in this camp because I have no intel that this would ever happen. But when Miami fans watch CJ Bailey out there cooking, he's South Floridian, went to Chaminade Madonna down here in Miami. Miami fans are like, oh, we're looking at our next quarterback in the transfer portal. I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but I can appreciate, as a fellow South Floridian, watching CJ Bailey, a guy that I wish Miami had recruited harder than they did coming out of high school. I mean, he was the high school quarterback for Jeremiah Smith, who, you know what he's up to at Ohio State, and JoJo Trader, who's at Miami. He played with all these guys, but, I'm going to assume he spends, a full 4-year career with the NC State Wolfpack, but he's a guy, as a fellow South Floridian, I enjoy watching.
You know what, Donno? Normally, when players and coaches have when media and coaches have one-sided beefs, it's the media beefing with the coach. However, Mario Cristobal has started a very interesting thing that everybody keeps sending me stuff from him whenever he's talking about people think we're talented, as like a callback to me saying, hey, Miami's always had the talent. They just haven't been able to get over themselves. This will become a two-sided beef. Okay. If Miami finds themselves sniffing around my quarterback, sniffing around my QB1, CJ Bailey, I come from the Dan Campbell School of Fandom. We bite kneecaps over here. So you make sure to tell your head coach he better have some good money for some good knee replacements. If I hear the slightest thing about if CJ Bailey is at the ACC Media Days next year wearing green and orange, just know I'm going to lose my credential that day. David Locke, come get me now. Come get me now if that happens.
I'm pretty sure one of the first things on the media policy is no biting of kneecaps whatsoever. It's one of the first things that you see up there. Oh, man. All right. And CJ Bailey obviously is a quarterback who I think is rising in terms of the ACC rankings. There's a couple of other major risers, including, one who's now second in Heisman Trophy odds. And there's been a notable tumbler 2 games in from the Atlantic Coast Conference. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. Folks, got to look at Hollywood Smothers at NC State, the game he had last night and the season he's having so far. Not only leading America in rushing, you could say, oh, he's played 3 games, top of the ACC in rushing yards per game so far. He has been a difference maker. Smothers so far this season, his stat line at NC State, he's got 380 yards already in 3 games and 3 rushing touchdowns. This is a guy who is absolutely moving the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do a fantastic job covering all things NC State on Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno. I host Locked On Canes, talking all things Miami. Speaking of Miami, Kenton, again, I only put so much stock into this stuff, 2 to 3 games into the season. But Carson Beck is off to a really nice start in Miami, and the efficiency has been what has stood out so far. Of course, faced a lot more resistance against Notre Dame to open the season than in Bethune-Cookman in the second game. But so far, Carson Beck has thrown not only 0 interceptions so far, Kenton, but 0 turnover-worthy throws so far, according to Pro Football Focus. And Miami is yet to commit a turnover. And you could say, beating Notre Dame in that opener, you can call that a signature win for Beck so far this season. And he's actually moved up to now number 2 in the early Heisman Trophy odds. And there's been a lot of movement up and down there. John Mateer at Oklahoma, who he and the Sooners are off to a great start. His Venmo is always open, by the way. Mateer now leads the pack after that win against Michigan at plus 900. Carson Beck and Dante Moore from Oregon are tied for the second highest odds at plus 1,000. Garrett Nussmeier at 4th with plus 1,100. So far, obviously very early. I'm surprised that Tommy Castellanos isn't getting a little bit more love than he's getting. I think he's like plus 2,500 so far. Plus 2,500. He's like just outside the top 10 in Heisman Trophy odds. But I don't think there's any question right now in terms of like the big games with Beck and Miami beating number 6 Notre Dame to open up the season, Florida State beating then number 8 Alabama to open up the season. Carson Beck and Thomas Castellanos, the biggest risers. And Cade Clubnik, he's kind of been on a milk carton so far. He was one of the Heisman darlings to open up the season. And Clubnik, I got to look pretty hard to find where he is now on this list. I'll get that in a second. But Clubnik has obviously tumbled a little bit, Kenton, based on the slow start.
A tumble is an understatement. His Heisman hopes have fallen off a cliff because he has looked all right. He's been a guy that you win with. Winning with guys, those guys don't win Heismans unless their teams are so dominant that it's not even a question. And the reality is this team around him has not been that dominant. Remember that string of Alabama quarterbacks that tricked everybody into thinking like, oh, all of us are first rounders. Remember when we thought that I'm not going to say we because I never thought this, but remember when the consensus was Mac Jones was a first round talent? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Because everybody around him was so dominant. Multiple receivers that were going to go on to be Pro Bowlers. Multiple running backs that were going to go on to either be a Pro Bowler or have a long career in the NFL. Multiple guys of that ilk playing together with him. Cade Clubnik has no such thing, but that a similar level of production at the moment. I have acknowledged that Cade Clubnik has played better than the stats indicated in game 1. He did in game 1. Game 2, he was just mid. He looked a little bit frazzled and lethargic like the rest of the team in the first half until he finally turned it on. So if you're having to turn it on against Troy, if your love light ain't burning hot to beat Troy, if you have to get somebody to give you the warm and fuzzies to show up in the second half for Troy, you don't deserve to be mentioned amongst the Heisman quarterbacks. Because you talk about quarterbacks that are mentioned amongst that, did somebody have to go whisper in Carson Beck's ear, hey, we've got a new Cavender twin that just dropped for you here in order to get him going to beat Bethune-Cookman? No, he showed up ready to go. Did anybody have to tell Thomas Castellanos, hey, East Texas A&M said that they have great athletes at Boston College and you weren't the best athlete to get him going? No, he showed up from jump ready to perform. And that's something that Cade Clubnik has not done this year. So obviously he's going to take a tumble, a fall, a slide, a drop, or whatever the hell you want to call it. But whatever you call him, don't call him a Heisman favorite no more.
Yeah, he, by the way, I had trouble finding him, but he's on there on the FanDuel odds list. Actually, the same odds as Tommy Castellanos at plus 2,500. But I can't help but feel better about Castellanos at the moment than you feel about Cade Clubnik. Exactly. All right, so some of the other quarterbacks in the ACC, obviously, like for a guy like CJ Bailey to NC State, it's going to take more wins and more stats for him to get that sort of national attention. That's just the unfortunate that comes with being at NC State versus like one of these glamour programs out there. But CJ Bailey is no doubt on the rise. I don't feel like I have a verdict yet on Miller Moss at Louisville. Like I grade him at an incomplete. Like it still could end up being fantastic. You know, you probably give the benefit of the doubt to Coach Brom to bring out the best in him the way he's done with, you know, Shuck and Plummer the year before that. But I haven't seen enough so far to really rate Miller Moss one way or the other. So to talk about him, and also Kevin Jennings at SMU. Obviously at SMU, I would say has been disappointing so far, especially dropping that game to Baylor. But that's not on him. I think Kevin Jennings to me is out there doing his job. It's the rest of his team that's let him down in a lot of ways.
I think Kevin Jennings is high level win with, low level win because of. I think he's in that range where he's right teetering that line of like, you're going to win games because I'm on your team, and you're going to win games with me. I won't kill us, but I'll also make a couple good plays here and there. I think he's teetering that line. And I talked about this before the season. With all that SMU was replacing, he was going to have to be a guy, high level to mid-level win because of type of guy. And he has not been that so far, which is why we've seen some of the struggles that we've seen out of SMU. There's a ton of time to right the ship. There's a ton of time to get it right. You know who's excited about the fact that there's a ton of time to right the ship? Miller Moss. Because he has looked underwhelming, to say the least. And his running game is showing up. You talk about Hollywood Smothers being the leading rusher in the ACC or leading rusher in the nation. Guess who the second leading rusher is in the ACC? Isaac Brown. Guess who the second leading rusher in the ACC is in terms of yards per game? Isaac Brown. As a matter of fact, the stats work out in such a way, and I know a lot of people aren't going to believe me, but go to the ACC's website if you don't. Number one, I want you to guess how many yards Isaac Brown is averaging per carry, Donno.
Ooh, I don't know, 6?
13.
13?
13.
13?
The man has 230 yards. I'm sorry, Donno. 230 yards on 18 carries, so 12.8.
Oh, I mean, you're close. Yeah.
You have a back that's averaging 12.8 yards per carry, and you cannot figure this out? Brother, Stevie Wonder could figure out how to play quarterback if you've got a receiver, a running back doing that much. We need Bell and company to step up as his receivers, but it's going to come at some point in time in terms of that being the case. And CJ Bailey, oh, my CJ, my God.
He's playing great. Listen.
You know, some people talk about taking a step forward during the offseason. He was listening to Cha-Cha Slide. He took 1 hop this time, 2 hops this time, because he took a massive leap forward in terms of what he has done this year. He is one of the nation's leaders in QBR. He's getting it done through the air. He's getting it done with his legs. He's getting it done any type of way you want it. He can give it to you. And why? Because he's more confident and he's more assertive. I told everybody that last year was not indicative of who he was going to be over his college career, because in watching his film, I said Jeremiah Smith is a phenomenal, no doubt. He was part of the reason Jeremiah Smith looked as phenomenal as he did in high school. He was throwing those balls to places where Jeremiah Smith's not slowing down every play, waiting for the ball to hit him. It's hitting him in stride. His release may be a little wonky, but it gets where it's supposed to go. And more importantly, he's put on weight now, so he looks like an actual football player. Last year, he looked like a basketball guy. He looked like one of those guys that goes into the weight room for the mirrors, goes in there and says, hey, look at my pecs. They look nice, don't they? Look at my tries and buys. Now he looks like a guy that lifts weights, that's part of a serious program and all that. And his processing and his thinking, he makes that decision whether to pull the trigger to run or get rid of the ball exceptionally quick in comparison to last year.
Yeah, so a couple of hold on, I guess one more we should talk, because as much as I've enjoyed what Dylan Lonergan is doing at Boston College, like I still need to see more. I need to see them face, you know, more consistently better defenses. But what about Dereon Mensah at Duke? Have you felt about, because he's putting up big numbers, Kenton. He's got 723 passing yards already. He's only played in 2 games, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception.
So I'll be the first to say that CJ Bailey is also in that category of I need to see him play some better defenses, because if you look at the defenses that he's played so far, you've got ECU, you've got UVA, you've got Wake Forest, not 3 traditional powerhouses on the defensive side of the ball. But now, going over to Dereon Mensah, I think, and I hate to say this, he's Duke's biggest problem right now. He's Duke's biggest problem.
Why?
Because he cannot get on time and on target with the receivers. He's making the right reads. The reads that he's making, I'm not saying that they're bad reads. He's making good reads. It's just always half a second too late. It's just always a couple yards behind. It's like the guy's open. The guy's being schemed up. And when I say Dereon Mensah is their biggest problem, this is not to say that he's not a talented player. This is not to say that Duke's offense will not figure it out. As a matter of fact, if you watch me talk about Duke's offense and what they will be this season on Locked On Wolfpack, I said preseason, I think the NC State game is the game where they finally figure it out offensively and they put it together. I still stand by that because NC State likes to play a lot of soft coverage, and that will help Mensah get in rhythm and hit those underneath passes to finally be comfortable and warmed up and to hit a deep shot. So I think that he's been their biggest impediment offensively in that he's just always half a second late. And half a second don't sound like much until you do a beat and pattern of half a second in an actual football play. All of a sudden, half a second makes a world of difference, right? The windows are so small. Everything is happening so quickly that when you're watching this from your couch, oh, yeah, anybody can make that throw. If I put you in helmets and shoulder pads on that field, you would look like a fool. There's a reason nobody offered you to play D1, okay? Dereon Mensah right now is just that half a second slow. And when he gets up on that half a second, this Duke offense will be firing on all cylinders. And Duke's defense, I think they've been fine this year. So I think that Dereon Mensah and his ability to just be on time will greatly tell the tale of Duke's season.
Well, okay, and Mensah, bringing him up is the perfect segue into week 3. So do you know who he faces this Saturday, Kenton?
Who?
He goes up against his former team. Duke plays Tulane.
Tulane. Yeah. That's going to be a good one. There's going to be a good one.
So what do you do with that? Like, do you look at it and say, okay, well, Mensah, having practiced against these guys, you know, he knows their defensive tendencies, or the defense, having practiced against Mensah, knows how to approach him?
This is going to be interesting because you have two of the best defensive minds in college football, in my opinion, and Summerall and Diaz going at one another. I mean, this is going to be some high-powered stuff from the defenses. I think this is going to be a low-scoring rock fight because, yes, you can say he's practiced against them so he knows their tendencies, but also Summerall can call a hell of a ball game, and I don't think that Mensah is fully ingratiated with his receivers yet. So I think that's why I think this will be a low-scoring rock fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if they figure it out in the second half and then they're fully rolling on all cylinders next week against NC State.
Yeah, and by the way, Tulane favored at home by 1.5, which is, basically a pick'em game. Now, an important week 3 note we're going to get to here is we've got the health report on Georgia Tech quarterback Haynes King, which is going to be massively important for their home matchup against Clemson. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Folks, we're proudly brought to you by Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My go-to flavor is the cherry limeade. It's delicious and it works, guys. I always keep a few packets on me. It saved me more than once from that midday crash. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. It's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Locked on ACC this week. We're going to look at CJ Daniels from Miami, who is on a streak. He delivered a big way in a big way with 2 touchdown catches, both contested balls against Bethune-Cookman, and that was after a touchdown, one of the highlights of the season, the one-handed grab against Notre Dame week 1. When the pressure was on, CJ Daniels came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching all week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Daniels is on a streak. And just like CJ Daniels delivered for the Hurricanes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. All right, so Kenton, I was checking out Georgia Tech head coach Brent Key's pregame remarks about 24 hours ago, at least 24 hours before we record this. And, you know, he was asked the health status of a few of his players, including quarterback Haynes King, who missed Georgia Tech's previous game against lesser opposition. Aaron Philo started and played well, but home against Clemson this weekend, you're going to need your QB1, Haynes King, and all of his experience and all of his talents. You're going to need him in that lineup. And I would imagine this means he's starting because Brent Key, he confirmed Haynes King will be available. And as we've seen in the past, even if he's not 100%, he can still do some damage. But it was like last year when he beat Miami with his legs, that was, I think, a shoulder injury he was playing through. This time, what Haynes was dealing with was described as a nagging lower body injury, but it sounds to me like he's good to go. I can't say whether or not that's going to limit his mobility. Hopefully not, for Georgia Tech's sake, because Haynes King can do a lot of damage with his legs as well. But you know, him being available and presumably starting this week, Kenton, makes you and I feel a little bit better about the possibilities of Georgia Tech pulling off an upset.
Oh, absolutely. Without Haynes King playing, I think Georgia Tech is cooked. I think that they need an experienced veteran, a guy that can do all the things that he can with his legs, because we have seen the Achilles heel of Clemson this year is similar to what it was last year. Can they stop the run? Which the answer appears to be an early, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Good day, maybe. But when that is the case, when you have a team like Georgia Tech, running the ball is going to be extremely important. And the biggest difference between Philo and Haynes King is their legs. I think Philo is a very comparable passer to Haynes King. I think maybe even better in some regards, some would say. But in terms of putting that ball under his arm and go to get me 5, go get me 7, go get me a tutty, it's nowhere near the same player. You know, Haynes King is the type of guy that you know, if we were playing him back at Cass Tech, we would have said, oh, we got a Vanilla Vic on our hands. Philo is not that. Philo is not that type of guy that you look at his legs as a legitimate weapon. So I would say all in all, and again, this is no disrespect to Philo, because last year when he played NC State, he did a great job of moving the ball against them on the ground on that last drive. But that was also because they were going dropping 8 and guys were 15 yards away from the line of scrimmage. It's a very different experience between that and a designed quarterback run, which is what Haynes King specializes in, even when he can't throw the ball. So him being healthy for this one, vitally important for Georgia Tech's chances of pulling off the upset.
Yeah, I mean, I think like overall, two biggest games involving ACC teams this weekend. USF at Miami, which we've already talked a lot about this week, and then of course the all ACC excellent showdown between Clemson and Georgia Tech. And if you guys have missed our earlier episodes this week, we've given out game picks and gone one by one. So I just said one more thing, Kenton, on this Georgia Tech versus Clemson matchup. And my pick earlier this week was, and I'm going to stand by it, I think Clemson's going to win a really close game. You're picking Georgia Tech to pull off the upset. The money, Kenton, continues to come in on the Yellow Jackets, because that line has now, within the past 6 days, moved a full 7 points, I think. Because I was looking at like Sunday, Clemson favored by 9.5 points. Now, Clemson, they're just 2.5 point favorites in Atlanta. Like, a lot of money's coming in on the Yellow Jackets to move the line that much.
Hey, for all the degenerates that say, "Oh, Kenton isn't a better," what does he know about sports betting? Guess who
He knows.
predicted NC
Yeah.
State's exact score last night?
Oh
34-24.
yeah, that was good. Yeah,
Guess who predicted
34-24, right on the money.
Guess who predicted Justin Jolie anytime touchdown last game? No touchdowns coming into the game. He walks out with 2. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I participate in the debauchery that is gambling. More power to you if you do. More power to you. Yes, I know I call you funny names, but it's a joke. I got love for all my gamblers. Donno
Yeah.
knows I love them. It's not
In fact,
a,
I need to
oh.
listen to Kenton more often is what I need to do.
It's not a finger wag. But in this game, I seriously think that we are looking at a moment where this was not a Clemson team that was supposed to be good. This was not a Clemson team that was supposed to be, well, you're probably going to lose a couple, but you're going to win the ACC. This was supposed to be an all-time Clemson team. This was supposed to be hey, you've got one of the best receiving corps in the nation. You've got a Heisman darling at quarterback. You've got defenders that can do it up front. 2 potential top 10 picks up front. You've got a linebacking core that is freaky good. You've got defensive backs that have been here for forever. We know what a Terrell does at Clemson, and you got one of them in your defensive backfield. And all of a sudden, they just look, all right, pretty good. They might be able to win the ACC. I think that this is a game where if Georgia Tech comes out and is who they are, they outmuscle them at the line of scrimmage and they get themselves a win.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everyone for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Make sure you check out Kenton, and apparently he's the guy to go to for gambling advice because he's predicting all these final scores. Follow him on X at TGIF_Kenton. Follow him at Locked On Wolfpack. You can watch me and listen to me at Locked On Canes and follow me at Alex Donno. And everyone have an awesome weekend of football, and we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.